3-question response video. Jay Sounder, My Misery Me, Yvette Saute, Logos for Losers. I think those are the monikers. Anyway, response video. So, 3 questions. You know, they're very big questions. Before even loaded. So the general subject is, why aren't we allowed to indulge in our love for whatever it may be? Playing games, chasing women, chasing men, whatever. Why isn't that so much more special, or the most specially of special things, compared to, and so this is where the problem is in what we're comparing this to issue. Because if we're on the good ship Lollipop, if everything was okay on planet Earth, no problems, then I guess all this party attitude would be fine. Why isn't it okay to just, drink on the yacht and be debaucherous and blah blah blah? There's no herpes, there's no AIDS, there's no da-da-da. Yeah, so then why not? But that's not the world we live in, number one. I'm not obligating you to be a serious human. If you want to be a frivolous human, go ahead, indulge in your fantasy life, even though, like I said, it can be analyzed as just a psychological phenomenon. You get addicted to something, you show up at the arena, you watch your little gladiators in their little orange uniforms do their little blah blah blah, and you cheer and you wave your finger and you get all excited and happy. And I mean, whether you're doing that, watching porn, or watching football, or watching basketball, it's all the same fucking thing. Psychology. You're just owned by your attachment or your addiction, your hunger for some sort of gratification you're getting out of, your side winning. Some guys say my side's winning when I have a bunch of, pussies hanging on the wall, and other guys, the fingerprint of it anyway. I have all their butt cheeks on the wall, because I did them all on the wall of doing. And for other idiots, it's dead animals, and then for other idiots, is little trophies that they never earned, autographed baseball or something. And this represents something like, I'm winning. I'm living good. I'm being sarcastic, because yeah, it's all crap. So anyway, question 1. You have expressed very negative, dismissive view of love. Yes, well, the whole frickin' word. I have a dismissive view of silly words that don't describe anything. So yes, this idea that you think there's this concept called love that means something, that I can distinguish it from lust, I can distinguish it from possession, I can distinguish it from addiction. No. So unless you want to qualify what the fuck you're talking about instead of using this baby talk, I mean, I've been over it a million times, so I don't mean to be insulting. But yes, I have a dismissive view, number 1, of the word love. It's a stupid, fucking, useless piece of crap as a word. Grown-ups should describe what they're talking about. Lust, possession, addiction. They shouldn't use the word love. You believe it is simply a biochemical reaction. Well, science believes that too. And it is there to facilitate emotional bonding and procreation. Well, what else do you think it's there for? So yes, that's what I think. I think we're biologically evolved on this planet, and we have the same crude biological function, and that function is, generally speaking, going to be conducive to this consuming and reproducing thing, and the passing on of genetic code and doing your whole alpha game and blah 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 blah. And so yes, all of those strategies are built into our mechanism. Now, we don't have to be obedient to that natural purpose. We can wear condoms, we can fool the biology. I accept that the feeling of love is created by biochemical processes occurring in our brain. Okay, then I guess this should be over then. But no, you're going to say something entirely different. So you accept it, but you don't in any way acknowledge it as the truth, alright, still, the crude origin of this feeling of love should no way undermine or detract from its inherent significance and meaning that it provides to the persons who experiences love. So that's like saying the person who experiences gratification through rape, it shouldn't undermine, you know, if we diagnose that as just being a consequence of some sort of inadequacy in life or some inferiority complex or some other kind of bullshit that's, you know, un-alpha'd him, and this is his desperate effort to alpha-rise. Crude origins do detract. That's the nature of the word crude. So you just can't have it both ways. And it's obviously easily profiled as just an addiction, like heroin. It's a drug. It's been metaphored as a drug, the love drug. I'm not saying that the feeling of love makes up for suffering and justifies life. Well, you're saying something almost as silly, I think. I am saying that when someone experiences love, is in love, so to speak, their experience of life becomes more magical. Well, the same thing is true of retardation. Retardation makes life all magical too. You want me to defend it? No, I'm not going to defend it. I'm saying, sure, fine, be retarded if it doesn't matter. But on this planet, it does matter. Being retarded just makes you a waste of space. Uplifting and spirited, whatever that is. So another, more jargon that just, I mean, it's like you know I have no use for the words. You sit there and throw them into these sentences and, gee, Gary's going to sit there and just totally love this. No. Then then it would be if they did not experience the feeling of love. So again, we know that the adolescent love is probably the most powerful. It's all delusional. It's all made up out of some sort of fantasy of what reality is going to be. Reality will never be that perfect. It'll never be what your expectations are. It's just a bunch of you know, little kids at Christmas, and isn't it wonderful? And yeah, so living a lie is wonderful. Well, I don't know. I don't think so, especially for adults. Again, we're not talking about we're like on some boat that's just sailing through the ocean and there's no worries. We're on the lifeboat. It's a shithole. And if your being in love is going to occupy 95% of your energies in the world, I'm just going to argue that, gee, I can't be too happy about that. Go ahead, if you must. But, well, I'm supposed to say great? No, I'm going to say, jerk. I would add that this feeling of love is different from having sex. Well, that's your bullshit, okay? I mean, the fact that you think one drug is different than another drug, the fact that you think a football fan is different than a soccer fan, well, whatever. You can be in love and not have any sexual experiences at all. Well, again, that's your love then is still based on some sort of, I would argue, vicarious or magical thinking about, like, I'm the quarterback and I'm totally identifying with him. He's totally my guy. And he's going to win the game, and I'm going to like vicariously have this experience of defeating Goliath. Being the David, and I don't know what else you're doing when you're doing this being in love thing. My question is, do you think love is worth pursuing in this life for people who are able to attain it? Well, again, if you must, but I'm going to say, is this what people should be occupied with, or do we have some real problems with this whole stupid life game, and maybe we should fix those problems? This is, again, going to have this argument about politics. People keep talking about, well, we need higher education financing, and we need to educate people, and we need to do this, and we need to do that, and what they don't do is pay the bill first, get the money, steal it out of somebody's wallet. Got to have the money before you can buy shit. And in this argument, it's just, it seems frivolous. We're living in this bear trap world, all this fucking doom and horror just sitting there all over the place, falling on people for no good damn reason. And you're going to ask me, is it okay if I spin my magical umbrella and just spin around in a circle and tap my heels together and go, there's no place like home? Well, I'm going to say, I don't think that's going to be very helpful. And is there any difference between love and sex? Well, my argument is that we know that sex is the origin of the bond. So sex is kind of the origin of all of the competition. And I don't want to get too Freudian. I mean, you can't take it too literally. But the word sex just means kind of is a trick word, because sex is maleness, sex is alpha, sex is big penis. Sex is all this competitive crap. I mean, this is all kind of sex. I believe you live without sex. Well, that's bullshit. I am well acquainted with my penis. But can you live without love? Well, I think of course you can, but I'm just not sure that anybody who's lived a while and done the love thing survives it over time. So if you were to ask somebody, let's say somebody could live to be 300 or 400 years old, you don't think that love would start not to mean too much in terms of it being a good idea, because you have to live with the separation. You have to live with the idea that what you care for are attached to or investing your life in is your little friend, the cat, or your little whatever it is you're in love with. That all of that gets ruined and destroyed. It slips right through your fingers eventually and washes away in the tsunamis of life. So how many times do you go through that before love becomes a little bit of a, I ain't getting drunk again. There's a time where you finally say no mas, and you just say, I'm not a drinker anymore. It doesn't have to be romantic love. It can be love for family. Well, that would be insane. Friends. Well, they're kind of users. Humanity, animals, love of learning, painting, poetry, whatever. So again, I'm just saying this is just addiction to. You're just talking about the mechanisms that we incorporate into our narrative that make us heroes, or that we are in some way expressing our talent, and therefore kind of in a way saying, look, I'm good at this, look, I'm win. It's the competition is an ugly feature of this love thing. It's just the truth. The point is, without love in your life, life is more difficult than it already is. Well, I guess the argument would be I could give you plenty of cases that people who have had loved and lost are ruined for it. So I think that works both ways, and I certainly would argue that when I was spending in my early years, when my brain was preoccupied with finding happiness for my penis, that it was a wasted life, and a sad one. So whatever. The question is love more than simply a biochemical reaction in the brain? Well, obviously the premise, you already agreed to it, that's all it is. You wish it to be revered because you wish to indulge in it, and that's fine, because you're like a virgin now, and the world is all open to you, and there's all this new stuff to play with. And so yes, you're childlike, and so yes, it's fine for children, I suppose, to get their little hearts broken and play their little love game. But I just said, you're not gonna win. So good luck with that. Alright, question 2. I'm not very researched on this topic. I have a question I want to pose to my limited understanding. Since the advent of the pill and sexual revolution and the widespread availability of use of birth control measures, particularly the first world countries, women have obtained a capacity to have sex with little fear of pregnancy. But that's just not true. So obviously it's, unless you got the tubes tied, or you got the the man snipped, you really do still going to have some fear. And even if you had that stuff done, you're still going to have some fear, but you're going to say, did that motherfucking doctor do it right? It's fearful. Given that men and women have different libidos, well, that's not even the right word to use. I mean, it's okay, I guess. I don't know what else. I mean, it's worse than just different libidos. I mean, libidos is like, you know, men can both have penises, and one of them just isn't as excitable as the other one. And that would be different libidos. But, you know, women have completely different biological hormones and gonads. Their balls are shaped different. They make different chemicals and such. And society and biology seem to indicate that sexual power is always placed in a woman in this relationship dynamic. Well, that's really not true. I mean, alphas don't necessarily have to rape, but clearly women are owned by it. And women are obedient to it in many respects. So clearly women aren't making the alpha, say, ape, the alpha gorilla, the alpha gorilla. The fact that he's kicking the shit out of everybody else makes him the alpha. And he basically, you know, he doesn't say, I'm gonna rape you, bitch. He just says, you know, you is my bitch. Learn to like it. And women are capable of doing that learning to like it thing. Has the sexual playing field become biased against men? Well, it's just silly that this whole, even this argument of some sort of bias that exists because there's losers. It's just stupid. Women have always been, you know, an ugly woman. What, do you think she has a great life? I mean, this is just such a crock of shit. I mean, the imbalance has always been heavily weighted against the majority of women, just as it's been weighted against the majority of men. So, you know, what are you even talking about? To elaborate, is it very easy for an attractive woman to get sex? Well, yeah, it's very easy for an attractive male or someone with money to get sex. It is even easy for a fairly average-looking woman to get sex. Well, that's says you in the sense that, well, if you want to have sex with what? Desperate and homeless men. So if you want to have sex with people likely to give you herpes, yeah, it's easy. But is that the kind of sex somebody wants? I mean, frankly, you know, obviously men don't lower their standards. The fact that women can, you know, is partly this whole biology thing. Men actually have to do this performance thing where women technically don't have to do too much performing. But frankly, they don't have as much incentive to say, you know, fuck me, homeless man. You know. So, but then they'll fall for, you know, some guy who's just, you know, looking for a cheap thrill. The same cannot be said of men. And again, why should the same be? So I'm just saying, if we turn the world around, or if we just made it equal, and women were just as crass and superficial in their devotions, I don't think you'd like that world very much. I guess I have to get that. Alright, continuing. Maybe since it's on the subject of sex, I'll, you know, I have to edit this video now anyway. So maybe I'll pop in some, you know, properly metaphoric dying sperm. You know, it's kind of wanted to use, well, I got plenty of it. I can always use it somewhere else for some other subject. Just the whole futility of this chasing bullshit. Anyway, so I'll read this and make my point. So even good-looking men, blah blah blah. Women have the upper hand, it seems, because they are always going to have many potential choices for partners, while men have to work especially hard to become attractive to partners. Good looks, famous, blah blah blah, social status. If the current dating environment is biased against men, should women not take some responsibility here? Which is this. So first, the false premise that there's a bias against men, and then another false premise that somehow that bias is the woman's fault, and behave in a manner that acknowledges the inherent bias in sexual power game. so that there's a sexual power game that men and women are competing in any kind of rational way? No. Women are playing soccer, men are playing badminton, or vice versa. Okay, but they're not playing the same game. Women don't. If women aren't in a sexual power game. I don't. I don't want to have to. I mean, you should know better than me. You're trying to be a woman, so I mean, you should have researched enough to know that generally speaking, women are looking for a little bit more than just a dick and their vagina. Okay, where men are just looking for a place, a vagina to deposit their dick, and in many cases, and that's all that women are getting out of the sexual power game, is used by men who want something to play with and then go about their business. And women want somebody to live with, and then yes, you have sex now and then, if you have to. For some women, it's obviously not a sexual power game. Women are in a relationship power game. Men are in a sexual power game. So they're not the same game. It's just kind of bullshit. So anyway, and shouldn't women have a little bit more humility here and acknowledge their sexual advantage in the dating market? So again, go ahead. Well, you must have experienced some of this. I mean, it's just, I don't want to cut this down to just aesthetics, but again, many unattractive women do not get the opportunity to make reasonable choices. They get stuck with lousy choices. They get beat up. They get, by crappy men because they have to choose a crappy man. Duh. So but whatever. This whole argument that we're going to compare who's winning, men or women, is kind of a joke. And if you think, I certainly don't believe women win by being as ignorant and stupid and short-sighted and irrational and sloppy and piggish and gluttonous as men. So I don't think that's exactly a good expression of liberation, is to imitate assholes. So, but yes, the idea that women should be liberated to be free of being owned and being restrained from having property and being equal players in the game, in the sense of having the same rights to abuse and use people as the other people who are given those rights. I just don't think anybody should be a user. So when you, so if you can show me how men are becoming so much less usury and dishonest in relationships, then you can start pleading your case for how they're being so horribly treated by the evil, lying, maniacal women. Anyway, you have stated that humanity's psychology is selfish, bigoted, irrational. Well, I'm just saying the facts sort of prove it, and yes, I've just illustrated that there's a whole pile of facts that kind of demonstrate that this is the nature of the organism is selfish. The nature of the organism is wanting, and that's, those things put together are just going to make it impossible for good reasoning to be applied, because every situation there's going to be a way of averting your view to not see consequences. This is how you would describe human psychology in philosophical terms, i.e. human psychology is selfish, bigoted, irrational. Human psychology is wanting, period. And want is a corruption. You have a personal interest. Yes, that corrupts your judgment. That's just a fact of life. It's something to be fought against. I have a problem with this. I think it's too reductive. Well, I don't care. I think it's too factual to be argued. So go ahead, complain. But you're going to have to complain with like some sort of facts or something. Our human needs and desires, like the need for love or the experience of love, appreciation of beauty should have their own place in philosophical discourse. Well, the only place they have in philosophical discourse, that is rational conversation, is that you acknowledge their existence, you acknowledge their corruption. The idea of my child is just bad psychology. It has nothing to do with getting the facts right, and that's just the truth. Beautiful woman is somehow a better woman. It's just bullshit psychology. It has nothing to do with the truth. You want to pretend it matters whether the players on the field have pretty uniforms or ugly uniforms. Go ahead and believe that, but it's just not true. Indeed, love and beauty have been discussed philosophically. I'm not familiar with actual examples. Well, again, yes, because the actual examples would be in the form of poetry or something, or some other kind of crap, and you may call them philosophers, but I won't. So that's, philosophers are supposed to be like scientists. Philosophy, in my opinion, is a scientific discipline, and scientists aren't allowed to be preachers or bishops or any other kind of religious kook. But I can safely assume this to be the case. People have written about love as a psychological subject. Well, says you. I don't think they really have, other than in a religious context. So if you want to say science is religion, I'm going to say no, it isn't. People have written about beauty as a philosophical subject. Well, again, says you. The only thing about beauty is that it's completely subjective, which in philosophical terms means completely suspect. So as soon as you say something subjective in philosophical terms, you've basically said subjective means, gee, that's tainted, and you need to be skeptical of the meaning or validity of that subjective judgment. And they do not, because you have to have real and contextual knowledge to defeat narrow and subjective knowledge. And they do not simply dismiss it offhand and reduce it to biochemical interactions. Well, you already accepted the existence of biochemical reactions, and now you're playing this other side of the fence game again. Occurring in the brain or resulting from social conditioning. Well, if you don't think you're the byproduct of the world you grew up in, then I think you're kind of silly. Such as our subjective experience of beauty and what we find beautiful and aesthetically pleasing. Well, if you don't think all of that's based on the culture that raised you, again, I think you're kind of silly. I think you gave these subjects psychological experiences, these subjective psychological experiences such as love, beauty, aesthetics, unfair treatment. Well, you can think that. Again, you're not going to demonstrate how I've been unfair to them. I have basically said it's the only thing to live for, if there's anything to live for in this creepy world. These passions are powerful and all of that crap, but they're also the thing that generates a willingness to buy into a lot of broken eggs and buy into a lot of let's keep setting the bear traps because I'm winning. That attitude is just so bad. They deserve to be treated more seriously as subjects worthy of philosophical inquiry. And what kind of inquiry? Again, we know what the animal organism is. We know why animals are attracted to each other. We know why they become interdependent on each other. We know why that we have all of these feelings. So why the fuck are you arguing this? That biology is written in goddamn hard rock. You're not going to unwrite the facts. Do you think these subjective psychological experiences of love, beauty, be treated more seriously as philosophical subjects? Again, they should be treated as serious psychological phenomenon, but as philosophical subjects, they should be acknowledged to be exactly what they are. Very dangerous addictions, extremely dangerous addictions. This is heroin that we're addicted to. This is not a friendly, happy drug. This competitiveness, this ego gratification, this chasing of idealism and beauty and love is all extremely dangerous, especially in the hands of people who have a reckless and superficial perception of their responsibility. So fuck this bullshit. Yes, dangerous, dangerous. Treat it as a philosophical subject in that it should be acknowledged that this is the road to psychopathy, is indulging yourself in a life being driven by your drives alone. Drives with no context. Yeah, it means you end up shitting in the living room. And obviously we can expect a little more from each other. The basic drives are as crude as they are in the most vile of bug. That's the nature of the organism, in the sense if it's going to have a nature, it's just a need machine. And we can need something more admirable, like a better world, or you can need some pussy. And I'm just saying, I'm not saying you can't need the pussy, because you're going to, whether you want to or not, maybe. But whatever addictions we have, we should moderate their destructive impact in the world. You can like meat, but doesn't mean you have to eat it every day. Doesn't mean you have to eat every kind of meat. Doesn't, you know, you can moderate your impact, the mess you make with your compulsive, addictive attachment to your frivolous activities on the lifeboat. So again, that's the context. We're on a lifeboat. There's life and death happening every day. Little 12-year-olds hang themselves and all kinds of other shit happens, and no one gives a rat's fucking goddamn ass. They don't care how many have cancer. They don't care how many are blown up over there. They don't care how many are poor. They don't care how many are diseased. They just do their little, hey baby, those are some big, nice, juicy hooters you got there, honey. And you want me to be impressed by that. You want me to say, oh God, that's so sacred. The sacred pickup line. Oh, it's beautiful. Sorry. No. It's tragic. It's sad. It's pitiful. And go ahead. Stick your finger up and, you know, twirl on it. You know, if you think that's all you can do, and that's the best you can be, is a little twirler on a finger, then go ahead and twirl. Anus down, of course. Anyway, so, shit. Yeah, I think I've done my job here. Alright, so anyway, I mean, I brought it up. I mean, you know, I threw the sex question in there just because I wanted to kind of just get to the fact of this idea that there's this mechanism that motivates us. And I guess I could have used a more romantic description. But in the end, it's really the same thing. I mean, whether you masturbate with somebody or by yourself, it's kind of masturbation. You know, really is. You're just doing it mutually, in a way, with a woman. You know, I mean, the argument can be made. There's not much difference in the activity as an activity. It is this taking of your pleasure, seizing it, and then the taking of your nap. Anyway, till the next time and such.